Hey, good morning, church. Hope you guys are having a great morning so far. So we're into Ecclesiastes chapter 3 today, and honestly, I've never studied through the book of Ecclesiastes, and I'm going to try and keep saying as much as I can, so eventually I will say it correctly. But we're into chapter 3, and, as you know, we have the same author as we do in Proverbs. So we have Solomon writing Proverbs and then also writing Ecclesiastes like this, right? And so verse 3, we see from verse 2 to verse 8 in chapter 3, we see two contradicting ideas, right? And so each verse has two different sayings that are contradictions of each other, right? So verse 2 says a time to give birth and a time to die, like that, right? And so as we see in Proverbs a lot, we see something but something, right? And so here in Ecclesiastes, we see chapter 3 starting off very similar, right? And so verse 1 says, there is an occasion for everything and a time for every activity under heaven. So verses 2 through 8 are talking about time, obviously, right? And so as we see, this repetitive structure of sentence structure throughout these verses, we see a time to give birth and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, all the way from verse 2 to verse 8, right? And so as you look at that, I like to put that into perspective of my life. A time to give birth, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot. That kind of doesn't resonate with me very well, but it's more what resonates with me is when you say, when is there a time to wait and a time to pursue, right? And so there's a time for everything, and God's plan is perfect. And so after looking through those two different, the two contradictions, the two different times to do something, we see go into verse 9, it says, what does the worker gain from his struggles, right? And so it goes straight from verse 8 to verse 9 like that. And so then the next couple of verses, we kind of see an answer to that question. And to me personally, the verse that answers that question the most is verse 12. It says, I know that there is nothing better for them than to rejoice and enjoy the good life. It is also the gift of God whenever anyone eats, drinks, and enjoys all his efforts. So what does the worker gain from his struggles? What does the worker gain from all of the work and everything that we do to put food on the table? All these things. Verse 12, I know that there's nothing better for them than to rejoice and enjoy the good life. So all these things of, either waiting or pursuing, these ideas, the answer right there, why do I need to think about this, right? And so God has a perfect plan for everything. And as we're working, the best thing we can do is just rejoice and enjoy the good life that God has promised us, right? And so then we keep going. This next section, verse 16 through the end of the chapter is, in my Bible, it's titled The Mystery of Injustice and Death, right? And so verse 1 says, I also observed under the sun, there is wickedness at the place of judgment, and there is wickedness at the place of righteousness. I said to myself, God will judge the righteous and the wicked, since there is a time for every activity and every work. And so verse 17 there, we see kind of mentioning back to what we just talked about at the beginning of chapter 3. It says God has a plan and a time for everything, right? At the end it says there's a time for every activity and every work. So God will judge the righteous and the wicked. So we see that there's wickedness everywhere. There's wickedness in judgment and wickedness at the place of righteousness. And God will judge no matter what. And so going back up to the time and the perfect timing of God and what does the worker gain from his struggles, we work and we work and we work all throughout our life. And we kind of forget to work for the kingdom of God. And no matter where we're at, we're either working for ourselves or working for the kingdom of God. Whether there's a place of judgment or the place of righteousness, God is going to come and judge us. So God is going to judge us on our works. And as we connect the rest of this whole chapter together, there's a place for everything. There's a time for everything. And sometimes it is to pursue the kingdom of God the way that we're called to do. And sometimes it's sit back and wait and let God bring the kingdom to you and opportunities to share the gospel. So, I'm really excited to study through the book of Ecclesiastes, and I hope you guys are too. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. God bless.